I started to develop extreme anxiety, so much so to the point that I was actually had full-blown panic attacks where I was struggling to breathe and, just could not bring myself out of it. And during that time, while I was in school, I started actually working with a therapist. And so she actually recommended for me to get an emotional support dog. I remember the first day he came, he was sitting in my little tiny apartment living room at apartment. And he was sitting there looking at me, and I was looking at him, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, buddy, but we're in this together. Like, there's no time to be depressed and anxious. I have a dog.
Welcome back to Tales of Fluff. I'm AJ.
And I'm Emily. We are so excited for you guys to join us for this episode.
We hope you're all doing well and are excited for today's episode. We're joined by Chelsea, the owner of Knallhart Academy. Her work with dogs is incredible, and the dogs she raises are nothing short of beautiful.
I agree. And this conversation was such a good one. Chelsea really shows what it takes to build something from the ground up, all while finding your true path in life, and how much purpose and reward can come from that.
And what really surprised us is that her story didn't start with confidence or a clear plan, or even working with dogs at all. It actually started with being an anxious college student and discovering just how much one dog can completely change your life.
In this episode, we talk about that journey, what it's really like being a dog trainer, the biggest misconception about dog training, and what it truly means to own a dog, and so much more.
This was a powerful conversation that really shows how different everyone's journey can be and why it's so important not to give up on what you're passionate about. With that being said, let's jump in. We started by asking how Knallhart Academy began and what inspired it.
Very good question. So, I've actually been working professionally with dogs since about 2014. So, that puts us at like 12 years now. And, a lot of people see me today and they're like, oh my gosh, this is a diehard entrepreneur. She's enthusiastic and confident. And she definitely must have had a straight route to get from point A to point B. And it was actually quite the opposite. I was fresh out of high school. I had a very high GPA out of high school and was actually able to get an academic scholarship, full ride to the University of Iowa. And I wanted to go the route that we were taught. You go to high school and then you go to college and, then you're successful. That's the image that they put into our heads. And so that's what I did. I worked really hard in high school, got that scholarship, and enrolled into the University of Iowa. And I was actually a pre-dentistry major. So I don't know if you guys can believe that, but a pre-dentistry major. And I got to school and away from home. It was just me. I was in the dorms and I was shocked. I did not feel prepared for real life, I would say. I was overwhelmed. I started to develop extreme anxiety, so much so to the point that I was actually having panic attacks, like full-blown panic attacks where I was struggling to breathe and, just could not bring myself out of it. And during that time, while I was in school, I started actually working with a therapist. And I remember talking to her about some of the things that I missed about not being in college. I missed my high school days of walking my neighbor's dog. I missed working in the fish department at PetSmart and helping clients pick out their perfect goldfish. And I remember talking about that and like how important that was to my life. And I no longer had that in college. And she kind of put two and two together of like, this is a big shock for you. You're away from family and this is the first time in your life where, you really are on your own, you know? And so maybe going back to having things that I enjoy would help bring me out of some of that anxiety and that hardship. And so she actually recommended for me to get an emotional support dog. And at that time, Facebook wasn't what it is today. And so I had to do some like old school research. Like I remember walking to the library and like looking up different dog breeds and their purposes and realizing, oh my gosh, there's so many different breeds and they're all so unique and this is fascinating. And I ended up landing on that I wanted a German Shepherd dog. That's what I wanted. And I got on the internet and started researching emotional support German Shepherd dogs. I wasn't sure if I was going to get a puppy or like a youth dog. This was all very, very new to me. So I ended up landing on a breeder by the name of Apple Ridge German Shepherds. And they were actually all the way down in Georgia at the time. And so I remember getting on the phone with Annette and talking to her about who I was and what I was looking for and what I needed. And she's like, I have the perfect puppy for you. And I ended up getting emailed a picture of the most handsome, blocky head, 12-week-old German Shepherd. And she's like, here he is. Do you want him? And I was like, yes, I do. Yes. But how do I get him to Iowa? I've never driven to Georgia. And they arranged transport and we got the puppy here. And I named him Oakley, my sweet Oakley. And I remember the first day he came, he was sitting in my little tiny apartment living room at apartment. And he was sitting there looking at me and I was looking at him and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, buddy, but we're in this together. And I went back to the library. I got a bunch of just dog training books, like old school dog training books, like by the monks of New Skeet, The Art of Raising a Puppy, Understanding Your Dog, Dog Psychology, and really just started taking it all in, just all of it from every single different type of dog training that there was. I was learning about all of it simultaneously. And I remember working with Oakley. I remember working with him and figuring out things that worked and things that didn't. And it was just such a fun, cool experience, like working with a dog. And he was mine. And that was the coolest part about it is in high school, I was working with, well, not even working with, but just walking. You know, I'd go in and put the dog on the leash and we go for a walk and it would just be play. But in this sense, in my head, I was like, this has to work. This has to work. This dog has to be well behaved. You know, he can't be misbehaved because I'm in an apartment, you know, and then what if he's misbehaved? It's going to make me more anxious and all of these things. So there was a lot on the line for me personally about why he needed to be successful. And Oakley was just, oh my gosh, he just was so eager to please. And everything that I taught him, he just absorbed like a sponge, you know, and just had the sweetest, softest, most wonderful heart. And I remember, you know, as time was going on, I was having my now husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, I should say, take videos of Oakley and the things that we were working on. And I would email them to Annette and say, hey, Oakley's doing great. Thank you so much for, you know, the puppy and the opportunity. And at one point she said, man, Chelsea, you guys are doing really awesome things. Have you ever considered competing with him? And I was like, competing in what? Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, there's AKC sanctioned events and there is obedience and rally and different things that you could compete in to showcase your obedience. It's kind of like a test, like a competition test. And I was like, sure. Yeah, that sounds great. And she actually helped me get signed up for my very first show. And that first show, it was in the Amana Colonies, and Oakley was like, I think it was like 2 or 3 days past 6 months. And the dog has to be at least 6 months to compete. And so he was just like 2, 3 days past. And so he was the youngest dog competing in this beginner novice trial. And I remember walking in and I was nervous, but I was like so excited to do something new. I had watched some YouTube videos on other people doing the routine and so I felt pretty prepared. And I remember going in and we did the routine and lo and behold, the first time out, we got a perfect score. A perfect score. And then we came back the next day and same thing, perfect score. And so I was like, this is awesome. This is so much fun. And I remember everybody there being so welcoming and, they were all congratulating me and, welcome to the sport. And it was just such an amazing, wholesome experience. It was just great. And we kept competing and kept having fun. And all in all, while I'm doing this, like Oakley is helping me. Like he's helping me and giving me purpose while I'm also in school. And so those symptoms of anxiety and panic start to quickly just dwindle away, because I'm like, I gotta focus on Oakley. Okay, do school, do Oakley, do school, do Oakley. And so I was finding purpose. And because of that, my symptoms were just improving just from having the responsibility and the companionship of a dog. And so over time, we keep competing. And again, we're having so much fun. And I remember Annette saying, well, Chelsea, what do you think about coming down here? Why don't you come down to Georgia? And I could teach you guys some more and we can work on Oakley's tasks a little bit more and how he could help me and, teach me some of the tricks of the trade. And I was like, absolutely. And I remember packing my bags and we actually flew down. We flew down to Georgia. She picked us up from the airport and I remember pulling into her 20-acre homestead of just pure Georgian bliss. And I remember when we pulled in, I saw this young lady riding a horse. And I was like, who is that? And she's like, that is my kennel hand. That's Taylor. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like she's riding a horse and, has her little cowgirl gear on. And, I just remember the sun shining on that day and we pulled in and she brings me up to what my room will be for the time I was down there. And she just was like, we're going to take care of you. We're happy to have you here and get comfortable. And yeah. And as I was down there, I really got to see some truly amazing things about being in dogs because Annette, she not only bred and trained German Shepherds, she worked with clients too, which was really cool. And Taylor, I got to watch this young woman the same age as me. And she was taking care of the dogs and she was cleaning the kennels and she was watering the animals and helping with clients and pickups and drop-offs and just everything, mowing the lawn and driving around in the little tractor. And not only that, she could ride horses. And I was like, wow, she's so cool. This is awesome. And I really got to connect with Taylor on a level that I had not connected with another person in my young life. It was like, oh wow, I like my first real friend here. And so that was really, really valuable to just see another life, not college, not just the, way that everybody tells you that you have to go, but somebody with their boots on the ground, getting up in the 90-degree weather, taking care of the dogs, and doing it with a smile on her face. And she was just so intriguing to me on how the dogs respected her, all of them. And Taylor is not a big person. He's not. Maybe 100 pounds. Working with these also 100-pound German Shepherd, like they were big dogs. And she walked with a presence that made your eyebrows go, whoa, wow. And watching her really inspired me. And getting to work with Annette and seeing the life that she built really inspired me. And while I was down there, I got to learn so much, just more than you can learn from reading a book. Having someone critique you and mentor you and teach you is so incredibly valuable. And that was huge. That was huge. That time down in Georgia changed the trajectory of my entire life. It did. And I remember getting back to the airport. It was like super early in the morning when Annette was, dropping me off, and it was dark and she didn't have the lights on. And so I just remember kind of like the silhouette of her face. And she looked over at me before I was getting ready to go. And she's like, "Chelsea, what are you doing with your life?" And I was like, "I'm going to school. I'm going to be a dentist, and that's the route I'm going to go." And she's like, "You need to be a dog trainer." And I was like, "Okay, thanks. It was a great time, but no." And I don't know why at that time I had that experience and hadn't put two and two together. At the time I was like, this is just fun. This is just a break from school. This is just a time for me to improve, my skills with Oakley. But at that time I didn't know that it was the segue to the future. That moment right there, that question of like, what are you doing? It stuck with me. And I remember we were on the plane and I was like, well, maybe I'll switch to veterinary sciences, because I still wasn't sold that college wasn't my way. I just wasn't. And so I switched to veterinary sciences and I worked at a vet clinic. And oh no, that was not for me. That was not for me, although also valuable because I learned a lot of animal husbandry. And I learned a lot of biosecurity and the importance of, vaccinations and information about, parasites and all of those things that you also need to know being in this business. I got that during that time. I just realized, like, no, vet school isn't going to be for me either. And then I had a pause of like, oh no, now what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I decided, I was like, I have to find a way. I have to find a way to work with dogs. I have to. And that's where I found a gentleman named Lauren Protzman. And he was the only one in our area running like a training facility at that time. And I remember getting a call from Lauren. He's like, "Hey, I got your application. You want to go on a pack run with us today?" And I was like, "Sure." He's like, "Great, I'll pick you up." And so I remember Lauren coming in the Highlander, picked me up. He had a whole car of dogs, and we went to Sugar Bottom Trail, and he lets like 8 dogs out of the car, no leashes, 8 dogs. And they all followed him on this trail route. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is amazing. Look at this gentleman. All of these dogs respect him. He has a presence about him. And I remember talking to Lauren. I said, I want to do this. I want to be involved in this. I want to be a part of this. And he hired me. And he was running also a boarding and training out of his home. And so his philosophy was really trying to help the dogs assimilate into just the home life and real life settings using positive reinforcement techniques and using pack drive mentality. And so I got to learn that side of dog training as well. And it was really cool. Like I was managing, anywhere from 10 to 15 dogs at a time in a home, and the dynamics between that. And it was a really valuable, amazing time of starting to pick apart and understand dog psychology. And all during this time, I'm still competing and doing fun stuff with Oakley. But college got pushed to the back. It did. And then there was a day where I remember because Taylor and I actually stayed friends even after I left Georgia. And I was talking to her and I was like, I miss working the higher level, because Lauren's program was more catered toward pet dogs. That's what we have in our area. And that was the need was for pet dogs. And Annette was doing more of the higher level, the emotional support, the therapy, the service dogs. And I miss that. And Taylor's like, I've got a client. I've got a client who needs a service dog. Do you want it? And I was like, if I take this, I have to quit Bounding Hound. I'd have to start my own thing. And I don't know if I can do that. And she said, yeah, you can. You can. You're ready. You've got this. Don't be afraid. You can do it. And so I did. And I remember, Lauren and I had a great conversation and I thanked him for the opportunity. It was so valuable. I learned so much. And I was so appreciative of the time and the mentorship he gave me. And even Lauren is like, yep, you go. Go, Chelsea. Go do amazing things. And I'm here to support you too. And so it was really cool because I had all of this support around me. However, I needed to call somebody really important. And that was my dad, my mom and dad, to tell them that I was dropping out of college. And so I picked up the phone and I was like, I'm doing this. I'm dropping out of college and I'm starting my own business. And like any parent, right? Like any parent would be like, no, don't do it. Pump the brakes. No, 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 don't do it. And I was like, guys, this is what I want to do. And my dad's like, okay, you could take a break, but you're not dropping out. You're going to have to go back and finish. And so that's what I did. I went ahead and I took a break and I started Knallhart. And my very first client was a autistic support dog for a 9-year-old boy down in Georgia. And I was training a German Shepherd. Like any good entrepreneur, I was running Knallhart out of my best friend's house. And it was great. It was great. We had our kennel set up and he had a great big backyard. And Tyler was so amazing. He was so amazing opening up his home to us. And we lived there and ran the business there. And I mean, it was great. It was truly, spectacular. And then as the business grew and things went along, we ended up getting our first acreage and moved Knallhart over there. And then from there, we ended up renting a building out in Iowa City and then ended up in our forever place out here in Riverside. And so a lot of people ask, like, where did the name Knallhart come from? Where did it come from? And I was in German Shepherds, and I actually had a working line German Shepherd named Onyx that I fully intended to breed, and I wanted to breed German Shepherds and go that route. And so I wanted a name that reflected who I was as a person and what my kennel represented and the type of dogs I was looking to produce. And Knallhart is actually German for tough as nails. And so even though I eventually got out of German Shepherds, that name just stuck with me. I am somebody who, I'm tough as nails and just that's who I am. And that's what this business represents is, somebody that doesn't give up and somebody that stays through the trenches even when things are difficult. It takes a lot to break me down now, and through all of this experience, like I learned so much and I'm so thankful for everybody who opened their arms up to me and gave me a chance to learn and encouraged me and supported me because otherwise I wouldn't have been here. I had a lot of people who very early on saw that I had a special knack for working with dogs, a special nature, and they pushed me. They pushed me. And so I feel really lucky for that because not everybody has that opportunity. And if it wouldn't have been for those people, I would have never taken the leap.
The way she went into depth about how she started was amazing. It gave us the full picture and how each step led to the next. And in the end, she was exactly where she wanted to be, even though it was a completely different direction than she originally was going on.
Yeah, and I also like how she didn't sugarcoat anything. She admitted she was anxious and how much Oakley helped her through that stage of life. And I feel like a lot of us who have experienced similar feelings and have a dog of our own can relate to what she was saying because you really do end up putting all your focus on your dog.
Yes. And her talking about college and how she even had to tell her parents that she was choosing her passion over college, I think that's such an important part that she shared because she had a passion for something that she didn't let anyone or anything stop her, but rather she went for it and it ended up being rewarding. And right there, that just shows that if you're really passionate about something, just go for it.
Exactly. And that leads us into our next question. We asked Chelsea what she loves most about working with dogs.
Truly, what I love most about Knallhart and what I get to do every single day is just the opportunity to help both people and dogs in such a meaningful way. Like seeing the positive change on like both ends of the leash is more rewarding than many other jobs that people get to do in a day. You know, seeing someone go from I'm frustrated, I'm insecure, I don't know what to do with this dog, to finally building a meaningful connection, that is just why I love and why the work I do is just so meaningful. You know, I get to help people from all walks of life. People who've owned dogs for 20 plus years and then they get a puppy and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. People who are like, this is my very first dog, you know, or people that are like, I have a rescue dog and I cannot take this dog back to the shelter. What should I do? And so that's what I love most is just seeing the change in the dogs and seeing the change in the people every single day.
It was awesome to hear how she doesn't just love working with dogs, but with people too, and helping them build a meaningful connection with their dog.
Yeah, and how she recognizes the importance of the fact that she is working with people of all types of life, from first time puppy owners to people who have owned dogs for decades, highlights her work as a trainer to be able to see that and not just see it, but actually loving the process of it all.
Her work does seem really special, and I understand why she loves that part of it. Now, with our next question, we move into puppy raising. And if you haven't seen Knallhart before, Chelsea raises stunning Newfoundland puppies. So we asked her, what is her favorite part about puppy development, and why is that her favorite part?
So I love puppy raising just in general. Like if I could puppy raise all of the time, oh, that would be a dream. I absolutely love how puppy brains work and how they develop and all of the different stages that they go through. I would say my favorite stage is like the 4 to 6 month stage. This is the stage where I find that like all of the foundational work that you've been doing since they were like 8 weeks starts to kind of piece together. You kind of see like the light bulb going off in their head, like, oh, I actually know what you're saying. And I actually know what my expectations are here. And so it's really cool because you've got this young animal that is becoming little bit by little bit more reliable. And you can see just their eagerness to learn. And I love like how they are so explorative and that makes it especially rewarding too. Like, I think what's most fun about this stage too, it's kind of like the first fear period that puppies go through. So it's like every single day, you know, you pass that tree. Every single day I take you potty, we've passed that tree. And then one day, like right around 4 to 6 months, the puppy's like, what is that? Oh my gosh, that is so scary. And helping them work through that fear using obedience and using the foundation that we've put into place is just so rewarding and fun. It's like, you don't have to be scared. We've passed this tree 100 times. And the puppy kind of looks at you like, I know, but it's like different now because my brain is a little bit bigger and more explorative. And just working through some of those things is just so much fun. So much fun. I absolutely love puppy raising with a passion.
This might be one of my favorite questions we ask people who raise puppies. And her answer made so much sense. The stage where the puppy finally starts picking up on what you're trying to teach them. And from personal experience, raising our dogs, that stage is so much fun and super rewarding because these little furry balls of fluff are finally understanding you and you're building a connection with them.
Ah, yes, I actually miss that stage so much. And I like how this podcast is even making us reflect on our own personal experiences. That's just amazing. But it's true, that stage is so special and also goes by so fast. But that's a whole different topic for a different episode. However, since we are on the topic of puppies, we kept it moving in that direction and asked Chelsea what's the most heartwarming interaction she has seen between a puppy and a family.
Yeah, that is a really, really good question. So, being a breeder, of course, produce puppies and get to see and get people from all over the place that, want a really high quality Newfoundland. And so, it's been really cool breeding quality, beautiful Newfoundlands and pairing them with families based on their desires of what they've wanted out of a dog. I think something that a lot of breeders don't give themselves enough credit for is truly how much work goes into pairing puppies with families. And it can be kind of overwhelming at times, trying to make that perfect match. But what I think in terms of a puppy that I've produced, what's been most heartwarming has been truly just seeing families' faces light up when they get that puppy they've been dreaming of. And I mean, this has happened countless number of times where it's like, this is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I've wanted. It's a healthy dog. It's a dog that already has some foundation. And seeing, especially with children, there's been puppies I've placed with families that have children and just getting the pictures of like, look, they're just a part of the family. And that really gives me the drive to continue, breeding and being a preservation breeder in the Newfoundland community for sure. But when it comes to a puppy in a board and train type situation, I actually had a client many years ago who contacted me about having a 5-year-old partially blind son, and they had adopted a lab puppy. And they wanted the lab puppy to do a little bit of service dog work, but they didn't want to go all of the way because it was a young boy and they knew, service dog training for a young boy would be really difficult. And so really they just wanted to work on the foundations and building the building blocks to help him be more confident out in public and at home and things like that. And I remember this lab puppy and cutest little butterball of a pup and getting to put some really meaningful foundation on her. And then, of course, getting to work with the family hand in hand during this experience. And I remember as the puppy was wrapping up the board and train, doing a public session, and just seeing how the puppy looked at him. It was like she knew that she was helping him and how his face just lit up and how he was just so happy to have this dog of his own. I would get pictures and videos even after the fact of just how bonded they were and how thankful they were that they had a young dog that they were able to effectively communicate with to help him, to help their son. And that's a story I'll never forget. It's very heartwarming for me to see dogs who truly love the work that they get to do and love to be a part of the family that they get to be with. And that's huge. That's truly huge. So, I would say that would be one of the most heartwarming experiences is working with that seeing eye dog puppy.
I enjoyed how she brought out both the training side of what she does and raising puppies. To start with the puppy raising part, that has to be so incredible to experience someone's excitement and happiness of finally finding a puppy that they've always wanted, and knowing that you helped make that happen. I remember our excitement getting our dogs, But to imagine being on the opposite side of that and to be proud to know that you impacted someone's life.
That does sound incredible and rewarding. Now, to point out the training experience she shared, I mean, she is truly winning. It's so amazing to know you helped someone have a better way of life and help that dog to be able to live to its full capabilities. And speaking about training, our next question we asked Chelsea had to do with misconceptions. And what is the biggest one that people tend to have about dog training?
I think the biggest misconception that people have is that all dog training and all dog trainers are created equal. And in reality, there is just such a huge range in methods and experience and results. But the biggest thing is that like who you work with really matters for both the dog and the owner because it's going to be the segue to how confident that dog is and how confident that owner is in the future. I think that's the biggest misconception is that, oh, I hired a dog trainer and I didn't have good results. So all dog trainers must not be great when that's not really the case. There's so many different methods of dog training. I mean, there's positive reinforcement, there's balanced dog training, there's heavy compulsion training. I mean, there's lots of different methods. And I always say there's more than one way to skin a cat, but all of those methods are not created equal. And every dog is unique. Every dog is unique. And one method that may work with this dog is definitely not going to work with this dog. Or one method that worked with this young dog may not work with this older dog. And so, really, when it comes to dog training in general and dog trainers, you've got to be adaptable. You've got to be able to take your philosophy and mold it around each individual case to benefit the dog best. Because again, I find that dog trainers that are just too heavy in their philosophy and have no give one way or the other, there's just no way to be successful because every dog is just so unique and comes from a different background and with different experience and different genetics that you have to be willing to meet that dog halfway. You know what I mean? And always treat them with respect and fairness. And so I think that's the biggest misconception. That all dog trainers are the same and all programs are the same, all facilities are the same, and that's just not the truth. And that's not to say that because one dog trainer trains this way and another one trains this other way, doesn't mean they both can't be successful. It's truly about that dog trainer and that dog trainer's methods individually and how they adapt it to each individual client.
If people have a bad experience with one dog trainer, they tend to write off all as a whole. But, like she mentioned, not every dog trainer is the same.
It was such an important point. And also making sure you're fully doing your research and understanding the dog trainer you're going to. Now, we know that Chelsea has dogs and loves her dogs. So we wanted to know from her own experience, what does it mean to her to own a dog?
Oh my goodness, this is my favorite question. Because like to me, owning a dog, like it really means committing yourself to another living being in a really intentional way. It's not just about companionship with dogs. I mean, it's about responsibility, it's about structure, and it's about showing up consistently even when it's inconvenient. Like, even if it's -5 degrees out, you still gotta take that dog out to go potty. But in return, the trust and the connection and the relationship that grows with your effort is just so meaningful. And that's why I love just being in dogs and just owning animals in general, because I don't just have dogs. I've got horses and donkeys and cows and goats and sheep, bunnies.
If we would have known that, we would have added some questions in there.
I have a whole farm, two of everything. And with all of my animals, it's just a special experience to get to connect with other living beings in a way that's different from a human to human connection. And I think it's really special. I think it's special, and I feel truly lucky that I've had the opportunity to have so many different dogs come in my life, to have so many different animals come in my life, and to have the passion to want to understand them. I truly want to understand, especially with the difficult cases that I get in of like, what happened to you and how can I make it better? How can I make you more confident so that your time on this planet is joyful and not full of anxiety? Because I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to be anxious and panicky. And when I see that in the dogs that come here, I'm like, I know, I get it. I get it. Let me help you. And so that's what owning a dog and being a dog trainer means to me. It's just helping and using my talent to help other living creatures on this planet find joy and peace.
Amazing. Yeah, and we have a couple of friends that when we go out, they don't have dogs or cats. And when we tell them, like, yeah, we're heading out early, and we gotta let the dogs out, they're like, what?
Yeah.
Like they don't understand. Like, you need to have a dog, you need to
Yes,
raise
you
it
have to
from
have a dog.
puppy, maybe
Yeah.
picking up the poop and the vomit,
Yes,
and
exactly.
then you'll understand why we're leaving early.
Exactly. Yeah. You're like, I don't want that in my house either. No. So we're leaving on time. Keep the dog on schedule. So, and that's exactly right. Like raising a puppy, really teaches you about yourself. It really does. And about what you're capable of doing. I don't like to compare dogs and kids. I'm a mom of three and three boys. So you can imagine the level of noise in my house. But it's like, having a baby and you get up every 2 hours and you got to feed the baby and change the baby's diaper and, console the baby and teach the baby that someday becomes a toddler who someday becomes a child. And it's similar in puppies. Like, you've got to teach this puppy, how do you assimilate into our family? And while doing that, while teaching the puppy, you're also teaching yourself what you're capable of. And can you show up consistently? And can you be a confident handler for this dog to trust? And I tell people all the time, it's more than just dog training. It is. It's more than just dog training because dog training actually helps you as a human being improve. It helps you improve your patience. It helps you improve your reliability, being consistent, being intentional. All of those concepts that you put into a puppy you can add into other aspects of your life, just like you saying, yeah, we have to leave on time. It's showing up for your dog. That's being intentional. And so I think that's the magic of owning dogs. It
Yeah,
is.
and
You'll understand if you've had one.
mhm. Yeah, so Emily and I, we've been married for about 8 years now, and our first dog was actually a total surprise by my in-law, and I think that really helped us to have like a solid marriage at the beginning, because
Yeah.
like everyone says, marriage at first is really hard, and
Hmm.
then maybe we got married in 2018,
Yeah.
so in 2 years, COVID hit, and
Yep.
then that's when we got our second dog, and honestly, like I still die by this, that the only reason why we survived COVID and didn't get depressed or, didn't fall
Yes.
mentally was because of our dogs.
Yeah.
I knew I had to work. Yes, it's scary out there, but I need to come home, feed my dogs, and take them out for a walk. And that was the routine.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
And I
definitely.
connect with that wholly, because again, it's just like my time in college where it was like, what do I do? And then Oakley came into my life and it was, I don't have time to be anxious. I got to take my dog for a walk. I got to go out. I got to go get him things. I have to make sure that he's got enough food and that he's making it to his vet appointment and that I'm training him to be my companion. Like there's no time to be depressed and anxious. I have a dog.
Exactly. I always tell
Yeah.
Emily, I'm like, man, maybe one day I'll have the luxury to be depressed. But until then, I got to go to work. I got to feed my dogs and I just got to grind.
Yep, we gotta grind. That's
It
right.
and Chelsea,
Yep.
you are literally living our dream to have so many animals on a farm. That's just amazing.
It is a fun life. I my life is funny. I feel like even just last night, I remember I got done with the dogs. I did a deep clean of the kennel, got the kids to bed, took a shower, lay my head down, close my eyes, and my brain says, "You forgot to water the bunnies today." So I get up, throw on my sweatpants, go out in the freezing cold, get a bucket of water, and walk it out to the bunny coop at 11 o'clock at night. So I mean, it's a dream, but it is funny. There's always stuff going on, always stuff happening. But man, it keeps me joyful. It really does. I wake up with such a sense of purpose because I've got so much responsibility out here. There's no time to drag my feet. It's boots on the ground. Let's go, and I enjoy every single piece of it. Every single piece of it. It is so amazing and so much fun. And a lot of people, again, tell me all of the time you're living my dream. You have these amazing kennel facilities on your home property. You've got horses, you've got the kids, you've got all of the things. And people say, "How do you do it all?" And I'm like, I don't do it all by myself. I'm an expert delegator. I have so much help and so many wonderful people around me. Like I said, it is just an amazing environment out here. It is so much fun.
That's awesome. And to be able to raise your boys in that type of atmosphere, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's the dream.
Showing up, even if it's inconvenient, that just sums it up nicely. Because when you own a dog or any animal for that matter, that's the commitment you make. They rely on you, and you have to put that effort in.
Yeah. And also, she mentioned about the training side, how she wants to understand them and help them live a life of joy and peace. And that was amazing. Now, our next question is for anyone who might feel inspired by what Chelsea has built and wants to start their journey. We asked Chelsea what piece of advice would she give them before starting.
I'd really start by saying that in this industry and in this craft, you have to be so honest with yourself about what you don't know. You've got to spend time around good people, good mentors, and get that hands on experience. Because if you rush the process and say, "I want to be a dog trainer and I'm a dog trainer tomorrow," it doesn't work. You've got to be patient. You've got to find that mentor, that person, just like I did of, "Hey, I'm going to take you under my wing and I'm going to teach you the tricks of the trade." And this work in this industry, being in dogs, it is all about responsibility. You've got to be willing to get up, boots on the ground, work hard, rain, hail, sleet, snow. It doesn't matter, holiday or not. Being in this industry is about responsibility. And the dogs are always counting on you to show up. And so somebody who would be considering wanting to get into dog training, wanting to own a board and train facility, wanting to be a breeder, you've got to build a strong foundation. You've got to find a mentor. You've got to stay humble, and you've got to let your consistency and results build your reputation. And that is the biggest part of it because nothing happens overnight. And it's a rewarding career to be in, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot of grit and it takes a lot of good integrity because I know a lot of people in this industry who wanted to be here, who wanted to be in dogs and lost that passion and drive. And you know who suffers? The animals and the dogs. And so before someone would take that leap, you've got to get the hands-on experience. And you've got to find within yourself, is this truly what I want to do? And if it is, then go and do it. Find that mentor, get all the hands-on experience that you can get. Be patient, be humble, be consistent, and work hard. And you'll get there. You'll get there. I think I'm a living testament of that.
That was amazing advice. Learn first, slow down, stay humble, and also to have a mentor and get the hands on experience.
Exactly. And a huge thank you to Chelsea for joining us and sharing about the incredible Knallhart Academy. If you would like to check out her work or see her beautiful dogs, the link will be in the description.
And we want to take a moment to thank you personally for listening. We appreciate it, and we hope you join us again. Also, thank you to everyone who has liked, subscribed, and commented, or even shared our videos. All these little things help us to continue to share these experiences and stories from those who dedicate their lives to animals. But today we aren't asking for any of that. Instead, if you enjoyed this episode, give your pet an extra treat from us because we all know they deserve it.
Absolutely. Also, if you know someone who works with dogs, make sure to thank them. Their work might be rewarding, but there is also a lot of hard work and effort that goes on behind the scenes.
Until next time, remember, sometimes that thing that changes a dog's life ends up changing yours too.